Elon Musk was not like other children. He grew up in Pretoria, South Africa, during the 1970s and 80s, in a world that felt both wide and narrow at the same time. Wide, because his imagination stretched farther than anyone could measure. Narrow, because the place around him often felt too small for his dreams. Elon was quiet, so quiet, in fact, that his parents worried something was wrong. Sometimes he would sit alone for hours, lost in thought. If you looked at him, you might think he wasn't listening. But inside, his mind was building worlds. He imagined machines, rockets, and faraway planets. When Elon was 9 years old, something life-changing happened. He found books, lots of books, science fiction novels, encyclopedias, and even technical manuals. While other kids played outside, Elon would disappear into pages. He devoured stories of heroes traveling through space, building new civilizations and solving impossible problems. One book in particular changed him. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. It was funny, smart, and filled with wild ideas. Elon didn't just read it, he absorbed it. The book asked questions about the universe and about humanity's role in it. Elon began to ask himself, what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? These were not normal questions for a boy of his age. But Elon wasn't a normal boy. By the time he was 12, Elon had done something extraordinary. He had taught himself computer programming. In the early 1980s, computers were rare and expensive, but Elon managed to get his hands on one. He learned from books and practice, line by line, mistake by mistake. Then, he created his first video game. It was called Blaster. The graphics were simple. The idea was simple too. You were a pilot destroying alien ships. But for a 12-year-old kid in South Africa, this was no small feat. Elon sold the game for about $500 to a computer magazine. It wasn't about the money. It was about the proof. Proof that he could build things, even at a young age. Yet, Elon's childhood wasn't all inspiration and excitement. Life at home was difficult. His parents divorced when he was young, and he lived mainly with his father, Elon Musk. The relationship was troubled. Elon later described it as painful, even traumatic. He often felt lonely, misunderstood, and even bullied at school. But pain has a strange power. For Elon, it became fuel. Every insult, every difficult moment pushed him further into his own world of imagination and determination. While other kids were playing sports, Elon was planning futures. While they worried about fitting in, he dreamed about changing the world. And above all, he dreamed of the stars. At night, he would look at the sky, filled with shining points of light. He imagined what it would be like to travel there, to stand on Mars, to go beyond Earth. These weren't just fantasies. To Elon, they felt like goals waiting to be achieved. South Africa in the 1980s was also a place filled with political tension and rules that didn't make sense to him. Elon didn't like the limits he saw around him. Limits on freedom, limits on possibility. Deep down, he knew, I don't belong here forever. My destiny is somewhere else. Maybe in America, maybe in space. One day, as a teenager, Elon made a quiet but firm decision. He would leave. He would not stay trapped in a life that didn't fit his dreams. He would find a way to reach bigger opportunities, even if it meant starting over. And so, the boy who looked at the stars began to plan his escape. Elon Musk was not the kind of teenager who blended in. At school in South Africa, he was often quiet, sometimes awkward, and almost always lost in thought. While many kids worried about clothes, sports, or popularity, Elon's mind was elsewhere. He thought about computer science fiction and what the future could look like if people dared to build it. The 1980s were a different world. Computers were still new, big, and mysterious machines. Not every family had one, and the internet, as we know it today, didn't even exist. But Elon was fascinated. When he finally got his hands on a personal computer, he treated it like treasure. He didn't just want to play games. He wanted to understand how they worked. So he did what he always did best. He taught himself. Elon bought programming books and studied them for hours. The language of computers, symbols, numbers, and strange commands was difficult, but Elon was stubborn. Every time he failed, he tried again. Slowly, he began to master the art of coding. At the age of 12, he created his first original video game. It was called Blaster, a simple space shooter. The player controlled a small spaceship and fought against alien enemies. By today's standards, the game was tiny and primitive, but for a boy his age in South Africa, it was incredible. He sold the code to a computer magazine for about $500. That was more money than most kids could dream of earning at 12. But Elon wasn't impressed with the cash. What thrilled him more was the idea. If I can build this, what else can I build? While other kids thought about toys, Elon thought about businesses. While they dreamed about being athletes or celebrities, Elon dreamed about inventing things that could change the world. But Elon's school years were not easy. In fact, they were painful. He was small, bookish, and socially awkward. Bullies noticed this quickly. They beat him, mocked him, and made him feel like an outsider. One day, the bullying got so bad that Elon ended up in the hospital with serious injuries. This experience could have broken him. Instead, it shaped him. Elon learned to live inside his own world of imagination. He built an inner strength, one that would serve him for the rest of his life. He discovered that when the outside world was cruel, he could survive by focusing on his dreams. At home, life wasn't much better. Elon's relationship with his father was complicated and often painful. But in the middle of this difficult environment, Elon discovered something powerful: books. He read endlessly: science fiction, technology manuals, biographies of inventors and leaders. He wasn't just reading stories. He was collecting tools for the future. From each book, he learned something: how people thought, how they solved problems, how they refused to give up. Science fiction novels opened his imagination to other planets and civilizations. Technical books taught him about machines and energy. Biographies taught him about human struggle and victory. Piece by piece, Elon was building a vision of what was possible. He began to see life as a kind of game. A game where the biggest levels were not about winning points, but about solving humanity's problems: energy, space technology, and survival. And Elon had already decided he wanted to be a player in that game. Still, South Africa felt too small for his dreams. The country was isolated, caught in the system of apartheid, and opportunities were limited. Elon wanted freedom, both for himself and for his ideas. The more he read about America, the more he believed it was the place he had to go. To him, America was a land of invention. It was where the great companies were built, where science fiction could become science fact. And so, while other teenagers worried about grades or girlfriends, Elon began to plan his escape. He would find a way to leave South Africa, no matter what it took. But first, he had to survive his teenage years. Years of learning, coding, dreaming, and quietly preparing for the life he knew he was meant to live. Because Elon Musk was not just a boy anymore. He was a dreamer becoming a coder. And soon, he would become something even more: a builder of the future. By the time Elon Musk was 17, he was ready to leave South Africa. He had made up his mind. If he stayed, his future would be small. If he left, his future could be limitless. But escaping wasn't simple. South Africa still had mandatory military service for young men. Elon didn't want to serve in a system that defended apartheid, the policy of racial segregation he deeply disagreed with. More than anything, he wanted freedom for himself and for the life he wanted to build. Elon knew America was where he needed to be. To him, it was a land of invention, the birthplace of Silicon Valley, the home of innovators like Thomas Edison and Henry Ford. But getting there wasn't easy, so he came up with a plan. Instead of going directly to the United States, he would first move to Canada. Why Canada? Because his mother, Mae Musk, was born there. That meant Elon could apply for Canadian citizenship, giving him a legal path out of South Africa. At 17, with only a suitcase and very little money, Elon boarded a plane and left his home country behind. He didn't know exactly what would happen next, but he knew one thing. He was finally free to chase his dreams. Life in Canada. Canada was not the land of instant success. It was cold, unfamiliar, and often lonely. Elon worked small jobs just to survive, cleaning boilers in a lumber mill, farming, and doing anything else that paid. The work was tough, dirty, and sometimes dangerous. But Elon didn't complain. He saved what he could and focused on his goal, getting an education that would lead him to America. He enrolled at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. There, he finally started to feel closer to his dream. He studied hard, made friends, and developed a reputation for being intensely curious. Elon wasn't the kind of student who only cared about grades. He asked big questions in class. What will shape the future of humanity? How can technology solve our biggest problems? Why are we not already exploring Mars? Sometimes his classmates laughed at how bold and unrealistic he sounded, but Elon didn't mind. To him, dreaming small was a real waste of time. The move to the United States. After 2 years in Canada, Elon transferred to University of Pennsylvania in the United States. Finally, he had reached the country he had always dreamed about. At Penn, Elon studied 2 degrees at once, physics and economics. Physics gave him the scientific foundation to understand energy, rockets, and the laws of the universe. Economics gave him the knowledge to build companies and understand markets. He wasn't just a student. He was a builder. Elon often started side projects with his classmates, always thinking about how to turn ideas into businesses. He believed that if you wanted to change the world, you needed both science and business. During his time at Penn, Elon also showed his unusual sense of adventure. At one point, he and his roommate rented a large house and turned it into an unofficial nightclub. They charged people to come in, played music, and hosted parties. It wasn't because Elon loved parties. He didn't. It was simply a way to make money while practicing entrepreneurship, a glimpse of the future. By the early 1990s, Elon Musk had a clear picture of what he wanted to do with his life. He often told people about his vision for the future. The internet would change everything. Clean energy was essential for humanity's survival. Humanity must become a multi-planetary species. These weren't just ideas. They were missions. Elon believed that if he worked hard enough, he could help make all 3 a reality. But Elon also knew he couldn't wait too long. The world was changing fast, and he wanted to be part of the revolution. Graduate school was one option, but building companies seemed more exciting. So, after being accepted into a prestigious PhD program at Stanford University, Elon made a shocking decision. He dropped out after just 2 days. Why? Because the internet boom had already begun. He believed that if he waited, he would miss his chance. Elon didn't want to study the future. He wanted to build it. And so, the young immigrant from South Africa, who once dreamed of the stars, now stood at the edge of Silicon Valley, ready to begin his first great adventure. The dreamer was about to become a founder. Silicon Valley in the mid-1990s was electric. The internet was new, mysterious, and full of opportunity. People didn't fully understand it yet, but one thing was clear. It was going to change the world. Elon Musk had just left Stanford after only 2 days. While most people would have been terrified to throw away such an opportunity, Elon felt alive. For the first time, he was exactly where he wanted to be, in the center of technology's future. But he wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He wasn't even known. All it was a big dream, a lot of determination, and a beat-up car that barely worked. Sleeping in the office. Elon's first company was called Zip2. He started it with his brother, Kimball Musk, in 1995. The idea was simple but powerful. Create an online business directory with maps, something like a digital version of the Yellow Pages. Remember, this was before Google Maps, before Yelp, before smartphones. Elon and Kimball saw the future before most people did. They rented a tiny office and couldn't even afford an apartment. So, Elon slept on the office floor. He showered at a local YMCA and coded for hours without stopping. When he got too tired, he would curl up in a sleeping bag under his desk. There were no weekends, no vacations, just work. Elon often said, if you work 80 to 100 hours a week, you can achieve in 4 months what it takes others a year to do. That was his philosophy, even back then. Kimball would go out to talk to customers while Elon stayed inside, writing code. Together, they hustled, begged, and persuaded businesses to try their service. The struggle. Zip2 was far from an instant success. Many businesses didn't even understand what the internet was, let alone why they should pay beyond it. Elon and Kimball faced rejection after rejection, but Elon refused to give up. He believed the internet was the future, and he would do whatever it took to convince people. Slowly, the company began to grow. They hired a small team. They attracted some investors. And eventually, big newspapers like the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune partnered with Zip2. This was the break they needed. Suddenly, Zip2 wasn't just a strange little startup run by two brothers. It was a real company making real deals, a lesson in control. But success brought new problems. Investors came in with their own ideas. They didn't fully trust Elon, who was still in his 20s and had no experience running a business. Eventually, they pushed him out as CEO. This was painful for Elon. He had built Zip2 from nothing, slept on the floor, coded day and night. And now he was being told he couldn't run his own company. It was his first real lesson in business. Having the vision wasn't always enough. Sometimes control could be taken away. Still, Elon didn't walk away empty-handed. In 1999, Compaq bought Zip2 for about $307 million. Elon's share was around $22 million. For the first time in his life, Elon Musk was rich. Not just comfortable, wealthy beyond imagination for a 27-year-old. But money was never the goal. Elon didn't buy mansions or yachts. Instead, he immediately started thinking, what's next? What's the next big problem I can solve? The next adventure. The internet was growing faster than anyone could predict, and Elon Musk was already planning his next move. He wanted to build something even bigger, something that could change the way people use money itself. Zip2 had given him a start, But in Elon's mind, it was only the beginning. The boy who once dreamed of the stars was now a young man with millions of dollars in his bank account and a hunger to build the future. The world hadn't heard much about him yet, but soon they would. After selling Zip2, Elon Musk was suddenly a millionaire. At just 27 years old, he had more money than he had ever imagined. But Elon wasn't the type to retire early or sit on a beach. For him, money was not the end. It was only fuel. Fuel to build the future. And so, while many young millionaires would have bought sports cars or taken long vacations, Elon was already thinking about his next company. This time, his vision was even bigger. A radical idea. In 1999, Elon asked himself a question. Why is banking so slow, expensive, and outdated? Think about it. If you want to move money, you had to write checks, visit banks, or wait days for transfers. The system felt stuck in the past. But the internet was changing everything else. News, shopping, communication. Why not money? Elon imagined an online financial service where people could move money instantly, safely, and globally. No paper, no waiting, just clicks. And so he started a new company, X.com, building X.com. Elon poured most of his fortune from Zip2 into this new venture. X.com was risky. Banks didn't trust the internet yet. Many people thought sending money online was dangerous or even impossible. But Elon believed it was the future. The early days of X.com were similar to Zip2, long hours, endless coding, and constant stress. Elon pushed his team hard, demanding speed and perfection. He wanted to move faster than anyone else. The company began offering services like online payments, digital wallets, and even email money transfers. Slowly, people started to see the potential, the merger, but Elon wasn't alone in the race. Another startup, called Confinity, was working on a very similar idea. Their product was called PayPal, and it allowed people to send money using Palm Pilot devices and later through email, instead of fighting to the death. The two companies decided to merge in 2000. Together, they became stronger, and the product that survived was PayPal. Suddenly, Elon Musk was at the center of one of the most exciting battles of the dot-com era, the race to revolutionize money, chaos and conflict. But success never came easily for Elon. At PayPal, tensions rose between him and the other executives. Elon wanted to rebrand the company as X.com because he believed it sounded bold and futuristic. But many employees and investors hated the name. To them, X.com sounded confusing or even like a website for adult content. Another issue was leadership. Elon was brilliant, but his intense style created friction. He pushed people hard and often made bold decisions without full consensus. In 2000, while Elon was traveling, the board of directors made a shocking move. They voted to replace him as CEO. It was déjà vu. Just like at Zip2, Elon had been pushed out of the company he created. The victory. Even though Elon was no longer CEO, he remained the largest shareholder. And soon, the company began to succeed in ways no one could ignore. PayPal grew rapidly, fueled by popularity on eBay, where millions of buyers and sellers needed a safe, quick way to transfer money. The service spread like wildfire. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion. Elon's share was about $180 million. He was only 30 years old. Twice, he had built companies worth hundreds of millions. Twice, he had been pushed aside. And yet, twice, he had won. Beyond money. For most people, this would have been enough. They would have taken their fortune, lived comfortably, and never worried again. But Elon Musk was not most people. PayPal had been exciting, yes, but to Elon it wasn't enough. Sending money online was useful, but it didn't solve the biggest problems facing humanity. Deep down, Elon still held on to the vision that had guided him since childhood. Clean energy, space exploration, making humanity multi-planetary. And now, with nearly $200 million in his pocket, he finally had the resources to start chasing those impossible dreams. The money from PayPal wasn't just profit. It was fuel for the next great adventure. Elon Musk was about to bet everything, not once but 3 times, on the future of humanity. By 2003, Elon Musk was a wealthy man. He could have retired comfortably, lived a quiet life, and never worked again. But that was never his plan. From the very beginning, Elon's mission was bigger than money. He wanted to solve humanity's hardest problems. One of those problems was energy. Elon believed the world needed to move away from fossil fuels. Oil, gas, and coal were destroying the planet, and eventually they would run out. The future, he thought, had to be powered by clean, renewable energy. And at the center of that vision was the electric car, the car nobody believed in. At the time, electric cars had a terrible reputation. They were slow, boring, and couldn't go far without running out of power. Most people thought they were toys, not real cars. Big car companies showed little interest. To them, electric cars were a niche product, something only environmentalists might care about. But Elon disagreed. He believed electric cars would be fast, exciting, and even cooler than gas cars. All it would take was courage, engineering, and relentless work. Enter Tesla Motors. In 2004, Elon Musk invested in a small startup called Tesla Motors, founded by engineers Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Tesla's mission was ambitious: to build a high-performance electric sports car. Elon didn't start Tesla, but he quickly became its largest investor and chairman. He poured in millions of dollars and began driving the vision forward. Most experts laughed. An electric sports car? Impossible. But Elon wasn't chasing approval. He was chasing the future. The Roadster. After years of development, Tesla unveiled its first car in 2006, the Tesla Roadster. It wasn't just any electric car. It was fast, going from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. It was sleek, stylish, and could travel more than 200 miles on a single charge. Suddenly, electric cars weren't boring anymore. They were thrilling. People were shocked. The Roadster proved that electric vehicles could be powerful and desirable. But behind the scenes, Tesla was burning through money. Producing cars was much harder and more expensive than Elon imagined. Delays, technical problems, and high costs pushed the company to the edge of collapse. Crisis. By 2008, Tesla was in serious trouble. The company was running out of cash. Elon had invested nearly all of his PayPal fortune into Tesla, but it wasn't enough. The financial crisis hit. Investors pulled back, and Tesla was weeks away from bankruptcy. Elon was under unbearable pressure. At the same time, his other company, SpaceX, was also struggling after 3 failed rocket launches. He was stretched thin emotionally and financially. Many people told him to give up. They said Tesla would never succeed, that it was a foolish dream. But Elon refused to quit. He cut costs, worked nonstop, and convinced investors to give Tesla one last chance. Survival and success. At the very end of 2008, Tesla received a critical investment that kept the company alive. It was just enough to survive. Slowly, Tesla stabilized. Customers loved the Roadster. investors began to believe again. And Elon, who had risked everything, his fortune, his reputation, even his health, had kept the dream alive. The Roadster was just the beginning. Elon's vision wasn't to make a car only for the wealthy. His plan was to start with a luxury car, then use the profits to create cheaper models for everyone. Step by step, he wanted to make electric cars mainstream. And soon, Tesla would do just that, with the launch of the Model S, Model X, Model 3, and beyond. The bigger picture. Tesla wasn't only about cars. Elon also wanted to solve the energy problem on a larger scale. He pushed the company to develop solar energy products and giant batteries to store renewable power. His goal was clear: end humanity's dependence on fossil fuels, accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And Tesla was becoming the vehicle, literally and figuratively, for that dream. Elon Musk had already transformed two industries: publishing with Zip2 and online payments with PayPal. Now, with Tesla, he was starting to shake the car industry to its core. But while Tesla fought for survival on Earth, Elon's eyes were still fixed on the stars, because his biggest dream wasn't just about driving electric cars. It was about leaving the planet altogether. For most people, building a car company from scratch would have been enough. For Elon Musk, it was only part of the story. Since childhood, he had dreamed of space. He had stared at the night sky in South Africa and imagined walking on Mars. Now, with millions from the PayPal sale, he finally had the chance to try. But his goal wasn't just to visit space. It was much bigger. Elon believed humanity needed to become a multi-planetary species. He feared that one day, Earth could face disaster, whether from climate change, war, or even an asteroid strike. If humans lived on more than one planet, we would have a better chance of survival. The problem was, rockets were insanely expensive. A single launch cost hundreds of millions of dollars. If humanity wanted to settle Mars, costs had to come down dramatically. And so, in 2002, Elon founded a new company, Space Exploration Technologies, better known as SpaceX. A crazy dream. When Elon told people his plan, they thought he was crazy. A private company building rockets? Competing with NASA? Impossible. But Elon wasn't afraid of the word impossible. To him, it simply meant not done yet. He set out to design rockets that were cheaper, reusable, and built with Silicon Valley speed. Instead of taking decades, Elon wanted to move in years. He hired young, hungry engineers, people willing to work day and night for the chance to make history. They set up shop in an old warehouse in El Segundo, California, and later built a launch site in the Marshall Islands. The team called themselves Spacers. They worked insane hours, slept at the factory, and lived on pizza and energy drinks. Elon was right there with them, pushing harder than anyone. Failure, failure, failure. In 2006, SpaceX launched its first rocket, the Falcon 1. It exploded. In 2007, they tried again. Another failure. In 2008, a third attempt. The rocket rose into the sky, then failed once more. 3 rockets, 3 failures. And Elon Musk was nearly broke. At the same time, Tesla was also on the edge of collapse. Elon had poured his fortune into both companies, and now he was almost out of money. He had invested everything, his $180 million from PayPal, and was borrowing just to survive. Most people would have quit. The stress was crushing. Elon later said 2008 was the worst year of his life, but he refused to give up. He told his team they had money for just one more launch. If it failed, SpaceX would die. The fourth launch. On September 28th, 2008, SpaceX prepared for their fourth attempt. The Falcon 1 rocket stood tall on the launch pad in the Pacific Ocean. Everyone held their breath. This time it worked. The Falcon 1 reached orbit, making SpaceX the first private company in history to launch a liquid-fueled rocket into space. The team erupted in cheers, hugging and crying. Against all odds, they had done it. Just weeks later, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. SpaceX was saved from survival to success. The success of Falcon 1 gave birth to bigger dreams. SpaceX developed the Falcon 9, a powerful rocket capable of carrying heavy payloads. Then came the Dragon spacecraft, designed to transport cargo and eventually astronauts. But Elon's most radical idea was still ahead: making rockets reusable. For decades, rockets have been thrown away after each flight, like burning an airplane after one trip. Elon believed this waste was the reason space travel was so expensive. If rockets could land safely and be reused, costs would plummet. Once again, experts laughed. They said rockets could never land themselves. But in December 2015, a Falcon 9 booster descended from the sky and landed upright on solid ground. The impossible was now possible. SpaceX repeated the feat again and again, even landing rockets on floating ships at sea. The world watched in awe. Toward Mars. With every launch, Elon's vision grew closer, making humanity a multi-planetary species. SpaceX announced plans for the Starship, a fully reusable rocket designed to carry people to Mars. It was massive, futuristic, and risky, but Elon believed it was humanity's best shot at survival. When asked why he worked so hard, Elon gave a simple answer: "I want to die knowing that humanity has a future." By the end of the 2010s, SpaceX had gone from near death to global dominance. NASA, once skeptical, now relied on SpaceX. Astronauts rode to space on SpaceX rockets. Satellites were launched cheaper and faster than ever before. And through it all, Elon Musk, who had once been a lonely boy staring at the stars, was now leading humanity back toward them. But while SpaceX was changing the skies, Tesla was still fighting battles on Earth. And Elon's personal life was about to be tested like never before. Success has a price. For Elon Musk, the price was higher than most people could imagine. By the late 2000s, Elon had become famous as the man behind Tesla and SpaceX. He was no longer just a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. He was a symbol of risk, innovation, and impossible dreams. But behind the headlines, his life was filled with stress, sacrifice, and pain. Living on the edge. In 2008, Elon was on the verge of losing everything. Tesla was nearly bankrupt. SpaceX had failed 3 rocket launches, and the global financial crisis was crushing investors' confidence. He had made hundreds of millions from PayPal, but he put almost all of it into his new companies. By the end of that year, Elon was borrowing money from friends just to pay his personal expenses. He later said, "I thought both Tesla and SpaceX would fail, but I wanted to give them my last dollar. If they died, at least I would go down with them." The 4th rocket launch saved SpaceX. A last-minute investment saved Tesla. But Elon carried the scars of that year with him forever. Endless work. Even after Tesla and SpaceX survived, Elon's schedule was brutal. He worked 100-hour weeks, splitting time between both companies. Mondays and Tuesdays, SpaceX in Los Angeles. Wednesdays and Thursdays, Tesla in Silicon Valley. Fridays, back to SpaceX. Weekends, sometimes with his children, sometimes back in the factory. He rarely slept more than a few hours. Vacations were almost non-existent. He drove himself and his teams to exhaustion. Some admired his dedication. Others said it was madness. But Elon believed nothing great was ever built on a 40-hour workweek. Public criticism. As his fame grew, so did the criticism. When Tesla missed deadlines or faced reduction problems, the media attacked him. When rockets exploded, skeptics called him reckless. Some journalists painted him as arrogant, unstable, or even dangerous. Elon fought back, often on Twitter. His blunt, sometimes strange posts created both headlines and controversy. Fans loved his honesty. Critics saw it as unprofessional. He once said, "I don't care about being liked. I care about the future." Personal struggles. Behind the scenes, Elon's personal life was complicated. He went through divorces, breakups, and custody battles. His relationships often suffered under the weight of his work. He admitted that being with him was difficult. "I need be in love, or I can't be happy. But I also work all the time. It's a terrible combination." At times, Elon spoke openly about his loneliness, his stress, and even his struggles with depression. Despite his wealth and fame, he was human, and the pressure nearly broke him. The toll of vision. Why did Elon keep going despite the pain? Because to him, the mission mattered more than comfort. He believed Tesla could help save the planet. He believed SpaceX could secure humanity's future. He was willing to sacrifice almost everything, money, time, even relationships, to make it happen. His friends often worried about him. His employees sometimes feared him. The world watched him with fascination, admiration, and sometimes disbelief. But Elon never slowed down. If anything, he pushed harder. The turning point. By the mid-2010s, his sacrifices began to pay off. Tesla launched the Model S, winning global praise as one of the best cars in the world. SpaceX landed reusable rockets, slashing launch costs. Elon became a billionaire many times over again. But even as victories piled up, Elon's life remained a storm. He lived under constant pressure, with the weight of the future on his shoulders. To some, he was a hero. To others, he was reckless. But no one could ignore him. Elon Musk had become one of the most influential and controversial figures on the planet. And still, he wasn't finished. Because his mind was already moving to the next frontier. Artificial intelligence, brain-computer interfaces, and the red planet itself, Mars. By the mid-2010s, Elon Musk was no longer just an entrepreneur. He was a global icon, admired by millions, criticized by many, but impossible to ignore. Tesla was shaking the car industry. SpaceX was rewriting the rules of spaceflight. Yet, for Elon, these were just pieces of a much larger puzzle. He didn't just want to build companies. He wanted to reshape the future of humanity. Neuralink, merging mind and machine. Elon often warned about the dangers of artificial intelligence. He believed that if AI grew too powerful without control, it could threaten humanity's survival. But instead of just warning people, he decided to act. In 2016, he co-founded Neuralink, a company with an extraordinary mission to create a brain-computer interface. The idea sounded like science fiction. Tiny threads, thinner than human hair, would be implanted into the brain. These threads could allow humans to connect with computers directly, helping people with paralysis, restoring lost senses, and maybe one day even merging human intelligence with AI. To many, it was terrifying. To Elon, it was necessary. If AI was going to become powerful, humans needed a way to keep up. Neuralink was his answer. The boring company, digging for solutions. Elon hated traffic, sitting in Los Angeles gridlock. He often joked that he would just start digging tunnels to escape it. Then, like always, he turned the joke into reality. In 2016, he launched the Boring Company, aiming to build underground transportation systems. His vision: high-speed tunnels where cars or pods could zip beneath cities, avoiding traffic completely. Most people laughed. Another crazy Musk idea. But Elon had a pattern. People laughed at rockets, at electric cars, at reusable boosters, and then he proved them wrong. The Boring Company built test tunnels, experimented with Hyperloop concepts, and even started selling flamethrowers as a publicity stunt. It was strange, bold, and very Elon. Starlink, internet for the world. Meanwhile, SpaceX wasn't just about rockets anymore. Elon wanted to use space to connect the planet. In 2019, SpaceX began launching satellites for a project called Starlink. The goal was to create a giant network of satellites orbiting Earth, providing high-speed internet to every corner of the globe. Billions of people still lacked reliable internet, and Elon saw this as both a business opportunity and a humanitarian mission. By 2023, Starlink was already serving millions of users worldwide, from cities to the most remote villages. The road to Mars. But Elon's biggest dream remained Mars. He believed that humanity's long-term survival required becoming a multi-planetary species. Earth was fragile. One disaster could wipe us out. Mars, he said, was a backup drive for civilization. At SpaceX, engineers worked on the Starship, the largest rocket ever built. Fully reusable, massive in scale, it was designed to carry cargo and eventually thousands of people to Mars. Elon often spoke of building a self-sustaining city on the red planet, greenhouses, habitats, and factories powered by solar energy. Many scientists doubted it was possible. Critics called it fantasy. But Elon didn't care. To him, it wasn't fantasy, it was destiny, controversy and power. As Elon's influence grew, so did controversy. His tweets moved stock markets. His comments about politics, media, and even personal jokes often made headlines. Some praised him as a truth-teller. Others accused him of being reckless with his power. In 2022, Elon made one of his boldest and most controversial moves. He bought Twitter, later rebranded as X. His goal, he said, was to protect free speech and transform the platform. Critics argued it was chaos. Supporters saw it as liberation. Once again, Elon Musk was at the center of a storm, a man of contradictions. By this point, Elon Musk was the richest person in the world. Yet he often said he cared little for money. His houses were small, sometimes rented, sometimes prefabricated near SpaceX facilities. He sold most of his real estate. What drove him wasn't wealth. It was mission, clean energy, space travel, the survival of humanity. And despite all the criticism, despite the pressure, Elon kept moving forward. Faster, harder, relentless as always. Elon Musk was no longer just building companies. He was building pieces of the future. Today. But his story was not only about business or technology. It was also about lessons, struggles, and the spirit of never giving up. Which brings us to the final part of his journey. The wisdom hidden inside his fight for the impossible. Elon Musk's life is a story of extremes. From a quiet, bookish boy in South Africa to a global icon shaping the future of Earth and aiming for Mars, his journey is filled with triumph, failure, and relentless determination. But what can we as readers take from it. 1. Dream big, even when it seems impossible. From staring at the stars as a child to planning cities on Mars, Elon's dreams were never small. Many people told him his goals were unrealistic, but Elon didn't let doubt stop him. He knew that the bigger the challenge, the greater the reward. Lesson: never be afraid to dream beyond what others think is possible. 2. Work harder than everyone else. Elon's work ethic is legendary. 100-hour weeks, sleepless nights, and endless problem-solving became normal. He showed that talent alone isn't enough. Without relentless effort, even the best ideas can fail. Lesson: hard work compounds your talent and brings dreams closer to reality. 3. Embrace failure. Rocket explosions, bankrupt companies, and public criticism, Elon faced failure again and again. But instead of quitting, he learned, adapted, and tried again. Failure became a stepping stone, not a dead end. Lesson: failure is part of the journey, not the end of it. 4. Focus on what truly matters. Money never seemed to drive Elon. Instead, he focused on the bigger picture: clean energy, space exploration, and humanity's survival. He took risks most people wouldn't dream of because his goals were larger than personal comfort. Lesson: align your work with your values and the impact you want to make. 5. Keep moving forward. Even after tremendous success, Elon never stopped. Tesla wasn't enough. SpaceX wasn't enough. He looked for the next challenge: Neuralink, Starlink, Mars. Lesson: resting on past achievements keeps you behind. Keep moving, keep creating, and keep building the future. The man behind the vision. Elon Musk is not perfect. He has made mistakes, faced criticism, and struggled personally. But his story reminds us that greatness is rarely comfortable or easy. It's about vision, courage, and relentless perseverance. Elon's life also reminds us that one person can make a difference. A single individual, armed with ideas and determination, can change industries, save the planet, and even aim for the stars. Final thought: Elon Musk's journey teaches us that the impossible is often just the untried. Whether you are learning, inventing, creating, or dreaming, the lessons are clear. Dream boldly. Work tirelessly. Learn from failure. Focus on what matters. Never stop moving forward. Elon Musk began as a boy staring at the stars. Today, he is helping humanity reach them, and the story is still being written. The future, as Elon Musk shows us, belongs to those who dare.